If you are a boy who grew up in the 60s or 70s in North Portland, there's a good chance that you were fortunate enough to be a member of the Columbia Boys Club. In today's podcast, I talked to a former member who would later become the program director for 3 years, David Harris. Kian still quotes you on something. And so
Yeah.
that was 8 years ago. So that's when he would have been 13.
Oh
He
boy.
quotes you about how your love for the Raiders and how you compared the Raiders. I think it was, quote, tell me if I'm wrong, that how you compared the Raiders to the passing of your mom. Do you remember
Yeah.
that story?
See, yeah, I do. Um,
Kian
I
quotes you
remember.
to his friends too.
Okay, now I remember. It's like when the Raiders moved. That kind of broke my heart. Just that's just like. Let me see how did I tell him? Anyway, when the Raiders moved first time, it just broke your heart. It just really broke your heart. and then
Right.
and then it's you know I think I told him, I says, like, my mom only died once, but the Raiders moved twice, so like they just broke my heart twice, and that's just not acceptable to me.
I joined the boys club at 5.5 years old, even though it was for 7 to
7 years
17 year
old,
olds.
correct,
Yep. So you're supposed to be seven. But at that
right.
time, I was getting in for between the ages of 3 to 5.5. I was getting into lots and lots of trouble. I'd been taken to psychologists. I almost got put in a home. And my mom, out of desperation, brought me up to this man known as Ken Thompson. And Ken had a reputation, and his reputation was that he's had some boys who also had some issues, and he was able to straighten them out in the Ken way.
The original one was on North Hereford Street, uh, behind the fire station there on Lombard. If you
Right.
if you remember that in your mind, across from the
Yeah.
Twilight Room, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
and the building's still there. The address was 7703 North Hereford, and it was just a building, no
Okay.
gym. It had a basement and a top floor for a game room, and it was a building. And there,
Okay.
like I said, there was no gym, no swimming pool, no nothing. It was just a dirt field, and that was in 19. I joined in 1957. Okay.
Oh, I didn't even realize you joined that early. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Then sorry, you're
yeah.
just going to help
And
help me out.
and
What age were
and
you when you
I
joined?
was six. I was six, so I had three older
Okay, so you
brothers.
joined it earlier than okay. Well, I
I
didn't
had
know
three
we
older
had that in
brothers.
common.
Yeah, I had three older brothers, and my mom took us up there and signed us up for the boys club, and
Right.
that's how I got involved with the boys club. The whole boys club started in 1947. So
Okay.
um, I was born in
I mean,
51.
just the institution of the boys club started in
In
1947.
47 in Portland. Yes, yes,
Okay.
and it had the Peninsula Boys Club and the Powell Boys Club. That was the only two clubs in the whole Portland area, and now they got
Okay.
a lot of them.
Right.
So
Right.
so that was from the beginning, and so those were the lean years. Those were the lean years,
Right.
just like the Blazers. Those were the very lean years. There was
Right.
there was no money, poor equipment, um, secondhand stuff all the time. Um,
Right.
but you couldn't tell us that because we was having fun. That's all that mattered. We was having
That's all
fun
that
as
mattered.
kids. That's all that
Yeah.
mattered. That's all that mattered.
Yeah.
And it was very different time back then. There was black kids and white kids, and we all got along. Sometimes there was different uh, issues that arose, but when it did, and we was at the boys club, that that guy behind you there, Mr. Ken Thompson, he straightened everybody out. if we had any issues. The boys club experience overall, for most of us, it was great. There was a lot of good friends that you hung out with because you went to school with them, and then you went to the boys club after school, and you played pool and table soccer, which is now called foosball.
Foosball. I never knew it was called table soccer. I've only known it as foosball.
Soccer. Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
this is the difference between our age gap. So,
right. It was just, it's table soccer, but there was some pool tables there, a ping pong table, and downstairs was a boxing ring. There was a boxing ring.
I've seen pictures of that. I've seen pictures.
Ed Erdman, he was the boxing coach. He was very good. He was very good. And there was a boxing program there, and there was a boys club camp that we attended in the summertime. So all those things were positives, especially the camp. The camp was out in Malala, Oregon, and
I went to it. I mean, it continued when I was a kid.
Yeah, and the camp's still there. I haven't been out there in years. I would love to go out there and see what it looks like now.
So would I.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember how to get there. Okay, it's just I went there because I went there so much. I can just remember the road in my mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
How to turn left without. I don't need GPS. I don't need GPS.
Right.
I know how to get there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
some of us actually remember the days before you just were given directions, and you had made sure it imprinted on your mind, so you didn't have to ask for directions again.
Right. But the camp was good. But the boys club was good. We had boys club football teams, and we competed in every March or something like that. We competed in a thing called All Events Night. And it was the Columbia Boys Club versus the Powell Boys Club. And the Powell Boys Club was basically the more richer boys club. It had the money. But guess what the boys club always won?
I'm gonna have to say Columbia no matter what.
Yeah, Columbia Boys Club.
Where my loyalty lies.
Yeah, and sometimes those battles were just like the NFL or the NBA game now. Those battles were heated. I mean, there were sit-up champions, push-up champions, pull-up champions, 8-ball pool champions, and I still got some of my certificates that I won back.
Oh, then. Really?
Oh yeah.
Now that didn't exist. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. That's I still got some of my certificates that I won, and from that all events night, and that was the big thing at the end of the year. It helped me develop as a person that cares about people. I think that's what it did for me. To where I could learn how to be fair and judgmental when I like a referee the basketball game. I tried to, referee it fair or referee the football game fair. So that helped me as a person grow. A lot of it, it just helped me be around, a good round person of guidance, Scott. It really guided me. And I think without that, I probably would have went a whole different way in my life. So I'm looking at that as, God, okay, this has been a lifesaver. Because a lot of people I know, they're not, they haven't, I'm not saying I've been lucky, but I've been very fortunate.
That's how I feel too.
To experience a thing, that I could have took another turn in life. You know what I mean? And I tell people that all the time. I could have took another turn, like, okay, let me go do drugs, go rob the banks, and do some crime, something like that.
Right.
Sure, we got in trouble as kids and stuff like that. I mean, because we was boys. But if things could have been a whole 360 different. But
Right.
maybe I chose this way because this was the better way. And then eventually, I was married and had kids, and that really kind of grounded me a lot. Because sometimes when you're, especially nowadays, when you're young, okay, people think that the world's on a cell phone, and it's not. And it's not. It's um, you got to really talk to people. And back then when you had friends and you talked to them, you went out and you climbed
Right.
the tree or jumped on the trampoline or whatever. Nowadays it's
Right.
like, it's these things here. You know, it's these things
Yeah.
here, which that's okay, but to have a friend that you can pal around with at the boys club, I mean, gee whiz, we made friends, and some of those things I want to say, Scott, those same friends, we're still friends today.
You grow up in the boys club like I did, and when I say
Mm-hmm.
grow up, that means you spend a lot of time there, and you have all these. And one of the things I love that you were talking about was that what the boys club was constantly teaching you was how to interact, and it was interacting with lots of personalities. And I can tell you, and I know you know this because when I was there, and I'm certain when you were there, boy, we may have been the biggest hell raisers at our respective schools, but when we came in to the boys club, we knew how to get in line because of Ken. Um,
Right.
but we arrived with a lot of attitude. Um, and you went through the boys club system, and then at a certain age, and I don't know when it was, and this is when people, when I say David Harris, and the smile goes, it smiles, people brighten up with a smile, and they have a David Harris story,
Boy, what happened,
and
Scott? You
you
went away.
became the program director.
To this very day, I still see boys club members. And hey, Harris, how you doing, Harris? Oh, yeah, and they just still call me Harris. They don't know my first name, but they just call me Harris. And hey, Harris, how you doing? Great, great. I see him in Fred Meyer's in the store, wherever. Sometime we're out
Right,
hanging out having a beer together. and and
right,
and that and that makes me feel good inside the fact that gee, they still recognize me and see me, and we can still talk and kid together, you know. But the ones who have passed, Scott, is, believe me, the list is in the hundreds,
right,
the more I
right,
can, if I think about names, from the past, and
right,
I can just write them down. Boy, that list is big. That
right.
list is big. So I try to, at least what I want to do is like leave a legacy, and that's my thing,
Right.
to leave a legacy, just like Ken Thompson did. So
Right. Well,
um,
I want to talk to you a little bit about like when you
okay.
became program director, and I can tell you that as I said to one of my former students, I said, because we were trying to arrange when I can do a podcast with him, and I said,
Mhm.
well, I think I'm doing a podcast this week with a former mentor of mine, a guy that I looked up to, and so I can tell you that you did make an impression on so many people of my age when you were there, without a doubt. Um, and I mean, there, it's hard to say David Harris, and if we're with each other, people of my age, you say David Harris, and we start smiling. Then we have David Harris
Oh boy,
stories.
it's big.
And so no, and I mean that's the thing, that somebody, if you can say somebody's name and then they can smile, start laughing, and feel good, and
Oh,
that
that's
that
great.
they can
I'm,
go
I'm
back to
glad.
that childhood memory, and that they can go to that place and feel good. You've done something right. And one of the things I reflect on is just the idea of mentorship. And when you're at the boys club in the evening, say if it's about 7:30, You may have gone up there just to play some basketball or pool, foosball, or as you say, table soccer.
Mm.
Sorry, we just have a different way of saying it. That when you
Right,
got
right.
done with I mean, by the time it was 7:30, 7:30, there were plenty of coaches still sticking around,
Sure.
chatting with
Yeah.
boys.
Right.
I just remember there were always adult role models around who volunteered their time.
Yeah,
And
yeah, there was plenty.
as a
Yeah.
kid, I didn't appreciate that. I mean, my dad, he was president of the Little League and did a bunch of, I mean, it was
Hmm.
something you did, but his thing was in like Little League and
Right.
the school that I went to. So he was doing a lot of volunteering there. Of course, he'd always come up and ref games, anything you asked him to do.
Sure.
But Cedric Crowe, Joe McFerrin, David
Right.
Boswell, Jeff Bradford, and I mean, the list goes on.
Right. Right.
There were men to talk to. And one of the things I remember was that if you rose up and talked to them, not trying just to be a little smart ass kid, which I could be, but they would talk
Hmm.
to you as a fellow individual. And when I think back to some of those conversations, that the respect that they would give to you if you were willing to accept it. Um, and that was a big thing for me. I remember, so I'll give you an example. I remember talking to David Boswell, and
Yeah, Bob Boswell. Bob.
oh, sorry, not
Bob.
David Boswell, Bob Boswell. Sorry. Is it okay? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what the thing about it is? I think I just guessed on his name because he was just Boswell.
Boswell,
That's why.
right.
So
Just like I was
he
just
was
Harris. I
Boswell.
was just Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I remember, I can even remember where in the boys' club I was at the time. And for some reason, we were 10 or 11. We didn't know what we were talking about, of course. But we said, someone of the boys mentioned drinking. And then I said, well, I could drink you under the table. Never had touched alcohol at that point, but I was just spouting things off. And then I said to Boswell, I could drink you under the table. And I remember him saying, well, you know, adults drink, and there's a reason they drink, and probably the silly ones drink people under the table. But if you're able to actually have a drink, have a good time, interact with people, and he was telling me this as a man to a boy
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
you're going to have to grow up, and some people don't. And there were plenty of those discussions
Right.
that I and so was that did you have those experiences as you were growing up in the boys club? Because I don't know how
Um.
frequently everybody was there. I just remember so many
Yeah.
adult males
There
being
was.
around to talk to.
Yeah. There was a lot of adults. They were there. They were the coaches back then. Oh gosh. Yeah. There were some adult coaches who was there, and they helped us. With the teams and the kids, and help transport kids, and they were good. They were good role models back then. And when I worked there was a lot of adult coaches, like you said, Cedric Crowe and Joe McFerrin's, and just a lot of adults that helped out there. And it was the one thing that I noticed that the boys club did do was um, they wanted parent participation, and
Yeah,
when you got parent participation, that there helped the program run better. Because see, back then, if you had a team and you had to go play a basketball game over town, it isn't like it isn't like we had a bus or something, but there was a
right.
bus, but there was a whole bunch of teams, so kids' parents would transport them back
Oh
then
yeah,
in their own cars or something. You can't do that now. You can't do that
yeah,
because it's a big liability issue. And
right.
so those parents were counted on, and they were really good role models, and they helped us out as the staff of the boys club, because we couldn't do it by
Right.
ourselves. We just could not do that by ourselves. And for all those people who did do that, I really commended them because they were there and they put in their time, and they put in their time volunteering. There was no pay involved, zero pay
Right.
for them. And I'm glad the fact that there was participation with parents. And
Yeah.
so yeah, there was plenty of times when I was working there and even growing up, I seen that from adults, and the
Right.
adults helped me, and it just goes snowballs on, and hopefully people are doing the same thing nowadays with kids, even though it's a different time. I hope I hope people, I guess what you want to call it is giving back. You want to give
Right.
back. You want to give back.
Right.
And that's what I see. When I see some kids nowadays, whether they're boys or girls, when I see them being involved in a program and they were small, and then now they're young people and they're giving back because they're in that same program, and,
Right.
and I see kids doing that nowadays. So
Right.
it is working. It is working, and it's a good thing, Scott. It really is. It really is.
Oh,
if the
it
kids
is.
give back, learn what you live. That's what I'm saying. Learn what you live.
Right.
Remember, a lot of the kids, like I said, I could see them. They're, at the St. John's parade or whatever, Hey, Harris, how you doing?
Right.
A lot of them still recognize me. I just got a little more white hair on my face now, and that's about it, and none on top of my head. So, I'm very grateful, Scott. I really am. I'm very grateful. So to
Excellent. Well,
go ahead.
oh, no. I was just going to say, I mean, I think it would be a good place to leave it with
Okay.
us expressing how grateful we are. I know that I am. And I
Yeah.
know the older I get, the more I want to
Mhm.
appreciate things,
Mhm.
and the more I can
Amen.
look back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say thank you, David Harris, for being on the Future for Fellas podcast.
Okay.
And I am certain now that we've gone through one, if we want to have a small conversation about some other things going
Sure.
on, maybe about some things that I discuss with other people I have on the podcast, I'm hoping that I could invite you back
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
And
You can invite me
hopefully
back
you'll
on.
graciously accept.
Yeah.